Good afternoon, fifth grade friends. I am Mrs. Matani, and I'm so excited to see you all today. If you are joining me again today, I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. It was so beautiful and sunny, and I hope you got a lot of time to play outside. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. So today we're going to kind of move forward. The past few weeks we've been working on algebraic expressions and order of operations. Well, now we're going to move into geometry. And with geometry, we kind of take what we learned about terms and corresponding terms in algebra, and we move it into geometry. So as a review, last week we worked on numerical patterns with rules and relationships between corresponding terms. And I don't know if you remember about corresponding terms, but we said that terms were simply numbers and corresponding terms were the numbers that went together. Today, we're going to review, and then we're going to move forward into our geometry standards. The first standard we're going to look at is the coordinate grid. We're going to look at quadrant 1 only. So when you're looking at a coordinate grid, there's 4 different quadrants. Today we're going to focus on quadrant 1. We're also going to look at the different words that go along with coordinate grid, like axis and x and y and origins. And then we're also going to possibly get into representing real-world and mathematical problems by graphing points in that first quadrant. Now I know this is a lot of words and doesn't make a lot of sense possibly right now, but you'll see in just a few minutes that this is really one of the easiest things and more fun things that I teach in 5th grade. So let's get started. When we met back on Thursday, I had an exit ticket for you, and I'm here to check it. I told you I'd always check back over your work that you did. So let's look at our exit ticket. It says, Mary writes a number pattern. She uses the rule add 3, and she starts at 23. Write the next 5 terms in her pattern. If the rule is add 3, what was the next number that you wrote past 23? Yeah, you should have written 26. After 26, yep, 29. After 29, yep, 32. After 32, 35. And then after 35, 38. Going up 3 each time. That was our rule, adding 3. How'd you do? Do pretty good? Good. Well, today we're going to start with our brain teaser. And I want you to look at what I did. This is modeling after what we did on Thursday, where we had a table and we had rules, and then we put our numbers together. So we had our table, our rules, our terms, which are our numbers, and then we put those numbers together. So right here on this part of the table, what does my rule say? It says to add 3, yeah. And then if you look here, this part of the table says to add 4. And then here we're going to write our corresponding terms after we've done the rule. So I did the first one for you. I started at 0, 0, and so of course my corresponding terms are 0 and 0. Right now, I want you at home to make a list right here of the next terms, by adding 3. We can do the same thing for this column by adding 4 each time. And then I want you to list the corresponding terms. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, when I look here, my first term after 0 is going to be 3, isn't it? Because I'm adding 3 each time right here. For this 0, I'm adding 4 on this part of the table, so I'll put a 4. And so my corresponding terms are 3, 4. My next term here would be 6 because I'm adding 3. For this one, I'm adding 4 each time. So what is 4 and 4? Yeah, it's 8. And so these corresponding terms would be 6 and 8. After 3, 6, what would be the next term in the table? Yeah, it'd be 9. Are you starting to see a pattern? Because that's what we're doing. We're looking at terms and patterns and rules. And so you're probably starting to see a pattern here, and you should also see a pattern here. This number would be, 12. And so we'd have 9 and 12 as our corresponding terms. After 9, 3, 6, 9, 12. 4, 8, 12. What would that be? 16. And then you would have your corresponding terms. The last one, we would simply do the same thing we just did. Following that pattern, looking at our rules, we would add 3 more here to make that 15. We would add 4 more here to make that 20. And then our terms would be 15 and 20. Now, with me being such a good math nerd, because I love math, I also like to look at just different patterns. So if this was the corresponding terms 3 to 4, and then the next set of corresponding terms would be 6 to 8, and then 9 to 12, you can also see a pattern that way with fractions. So that's just a way that I like to look at it. I like to look at numbers in different ways, look at the way that we manipulate them in our brains and our minds, and look at different rules and patterns. All right, so I hope you did well on your brain teaser. Let's move forward. Today, some vocabulary you're going to hear me say a lot is coordinate plane. Coordinate plane is when a horizontal number line and a vertical number line are lined up so that their zeros intersect. Now that sounds kind of weird for a minute, but I want you to think about the horizon. I want you to think about when you look out to see the sun rising or setting, that's called the horizon. Your horizontal line is just that in math. It's the line straight out in front of you. The vertical line goes up and down. So our x coordinate that we're going to look at today, our x always goes horizontally. So our x is going to go long ways. And the y that we're looking at, our y coordinate, is going to be the vertical line. On those x and y lines, we also have ordered pairs. Now what's cool about this is you kind of have already had a little bit of experience with this by looking at coordinating terms. So take a look. An ordered pair is a pair of coordinates or numbers that describes the location of the point on the coordinate plane, x and y. I want you to look at this. What do you notice here? I'm going to write it larger. There's parentheses and it says x, comma, y. If you look back at what we did with our brain teaser, you'll see those terms I put in order 3, 4. So looking at rules and patterns last week is really helping us to understand the coordinate plane for this week. And then the origin. The origin is simply where the x-axis, the x which is the horizontal line, and the y-axis, the vertical line, intersect, where they cross, okay? Think about the word origin. Now I'm going to kind of bring reading in for a minute because the cool part about math is that math also involves reading a lot more than you realize. Think about the word origin. When I hear the word origin, I think of original, something that has just begun. So the origin is 0. The origin is where we always begin when we're looking at the coordinate plane, okay? So when you hear the word origin, think about original, something just beginning, something just starting. All right, so let's talk about what the coordinate plane is. When a horizontal number line and a vertical number line are lined up so that their zeros intersect That is called the coordinate plane. So here is an example right here. Here is my X. Notice that's the horizon. That's my horizontal number line. Here is my Y. Right here, where they meet, where they cross, where that's a darker black line, that's the origin. So I'm going to put a 0 right there because that's where they originally meet. And now we're going to look at everything right here. Looking at the x-axis, looking at that horizontal line, I have you labeling the numbers 1 to 4 on that x-axis. Now the cool part about this is you label on the lines that you see. A lot of times students want to label inside. So they want to put a 1 in between right here in the empty space, but we always write our numbers right there on the line. So here is my 1, right there, just like that. Then my next line over is the second line over from 0. Then I have my third and then my fourth. Now, do you notice that little arrow right there? That means in math, and if you've been doing number lines this school year, and if you did number lines in 4th grade and 3rd grade, you notice that number lines have arrows because they go on infinitely. They go on forever. So if I extended this number line out, the next part right here, what number would that be? Yeah, that would be a 5. And then we would continue to go. If this grid kept going, we would continue with our numbers. But for right now, we're going to stop at 4. Okay, so our x-axis has now been labeled. We started at the origin and we went to 4. Now we're going to look at our y-axis. As a reminder, our y-axis is the vertical number line. We have our 0, and now we're going to go up the number line. Looking at the first line, again, we're not going to label the space. We're going to label the first line. The first line up is a 1. What would the second line up be? Yeah, it'd be a 2. Then we would have a 3, that's right. Then there's 4, and again, there's that little arrow that you see to remind you that number lines are infinite. They continue to move forward. So if we kept going up, the next line would be 5, and so on. Look at C. It says label the origin, the point where the x-axis and y-axis intersect with the letter O. Now don't get that confused with 0. This right here is 0. It's 0 on y-axis and it's 0 on x-axis. But this says to label it with the letter O. So I already have a 0 there. I'll just leave it like that. All right? Does that make sense? So far, it's pretty easy. We're just labeling the coordinate plane. We're just looking at what the coordinate plane looks like, okay? All right, so now let's talk about ordered pairs. I kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, talking about how you have some, experience with it already, looking at corresponding terms. And that's what ordered pairs are. They're numbers that go together, and they're a pair. So when we look at x and y, we put those numbers kind of together when they're paired up. So let's look at that. An ordered pair is a pair of numbers, and it's called coordinates, okay? That describes the location of a point. So if you're looking at this, now you notice this is not only labeled like I just did, but now you see inside the coordinate plane, I have some little letters that are labeled. So we're going to try to figure out where those letters are located here in this coordinate plane. The coordinates, of an ordered pair always appear in the same order, and this is really, really important for you to understand. No matter what you do, you always look first at the x-axis, the x coordinate, and then you look at the y coordinate. I always tell my students, in the alphabet, x comes before y. So since x comes before y, we're going to look at the x-axis before we look at the y-axis. I also say over, the word over, O, comes before U in up. So we start at our origin, we move over on the X, then up on the Y. All right? So if you move only on grid lines, let's take a look at what this says. How can you get from the origin to point B? Now remember what I just said. We always do X first, then Y. And we start at our original location, our origin. Our origin is right here at 0. And the origin, what it looks like, since it's the 0 for X and the 0 for Y, the origin is labeled like this. That's the origin. That's where we originally start. So if we're looking at B, and we always start at the origin, we're going to move over to the X-axis first. I'm going to move over here. And the reason I'm stopping here is because I see that B is lined up right there. I'm going to move over on the X-axis, and I see there's a 2. Then I've moved over to, I'm going to move up. Where does B land? It's right there, yeah, at the 5. So the terms for the ordered pair, the terms for B is 2, 5. We moved over 2 and up 5, and that's where our B was plotted. Now notice I have a line here. We don't want to draw that line with our pencil. A lot of times we do that, and what happens is if we're always drawing on our graph paper or on the grid, it makes it real messy. So I'm going to erase that drawing, but sometimes my marker hits it a little too much. So let's erase that now that we know that that's where B is. And now I'm going to ask you, where is C? I want you to look. Where is C? Remember, you start where? At the origin, that's right, which is 0, 0. Do we go over on the X-axis first or up on the Y-axis? Yeah, we go over on the X-axis first. That's exactly right. So we're going to start here at the origin at 0, 0. We're going to go over to where we see the line for C. What number is that? Yeah, it's 4. That's right. So my X coordinate is 4. And then we're going to go up. What coordinate is that? Yeah, it's right there at 3. So over 4, up 3, there we are. We're at point C. So over 4, up 3, those are the terms that go together that make our ordered pair. Now, what if I asked you right now to plot a new point? If I'm looking here, what if I asked you to plot point D? And I told you that the coordinates for X was 1, and then Y was 0. Where do you think D, point D, would be put in this coordinate plane? I want you to think about that for just a second. Remember, we start where? The origin. And our X is 1. So I'm going to start at my origin. I'm going to go over 1. But notice what my Y is. My Y is 0. So I don't move. Because if I were to move up, I would be at 1 on the Y. But since my Y term, my Y coordinate is 0, I'm going to go over from the origin 1 and up nothing. And so my D will be plotted right there, right there. okay? All right, so let's try that, okay? The cool part about this is now I think you're going to see how this kind of goes together with what we did last Thursday. So now, let's look at A, B, and C right here, okay? I want you to tell me where point A is located. I always start at the origin. I'm going to move over first. But look at A. Is A anywhere over on the X? No, it's not. So do you know that the X then for A, the X coordinate actually then is 0 because I did not move over horizontally. And I didn't move over horizontally, but I did move up. And I moved up 2 places. So the ordered pair for point A is 0, 2. What about point B? Point B, take a look at the origin. Over 2, up what? Yeah, that's right, it's 4. So the ordered pair is 2, 4. And then what about point C? Looking at the origin, and remember that the terms, the X and Y coordinates for the origin are 0, 0. That is where everything originally starts. 0, 0. We're going to go over 4 on the X-axis and up 1 on the Y. Over 4, up 1. There it is. So point C is 4, 1. Yeah. All right, so now very quickly, we can look and notice that we can put our coordinates into a table. And we can take that information on a table and we can graph it here. So let's take a look. Look at point A for X and Y. Now we just did this together. So if I start at the origin, remind me again, what are the coordinates for A? What is X? Yeah, X is 0, right? Because we don't move over at all. And what is Y? Yeah, it's 2. So in my table, I'm going to put a 0 and 2. Point A is over nothing on X, up 2. What is B? We did this together just now. Over 2, up 4. So X is 2, Y is 4. What is C? If you said that that C was over 4 for the X, up 1 for Y, you're correct. So those coordinates are 4 and 1. Now on this, right here, this table, they then gave you D, E, and F. We did D just now together. Over 1, and then it says up 0, nothing. So D would go right here. Look at E. On this table, E, the point on X is over 3, and then Y is 2. Over 3, up 2. There it is, E. And then F, over 4, up 3. There it is. All right, your exit ticket for today, I want you to take a look. Look at these ordered pairs. I want you to label X and Y. So this first ordered pair is 4, 7. Tell me what 4 is. Is it X or is it Y? Same with this one, 0, 6. And then looking here, can you tell me the location of point A? Here it is. Now my X and Y have gone a little higher up, okay? But tell me what A is. So looking at 4 and 7, what is your X? What is your Y? Looking at 0, 6, what is your X? Y, and the location of point A. All right, friends, remember you may email me if you need to at kmatani@mcpss.com. Feel free to call the hotline if you need us. And then also, you are smart, capable, and you are really close to being prepared for 6th grade. I'll see y'all Thursday, okay?